All right, so I live in the United States of America. Racism is pretty rampant. People pretend it doesn't exist anymore. A lot of people like to pretend that only white people can be racist. I grew up in the system. I know that's bullshit. I also understand the system. I mean, I knew the system and pretty much just the system from the age of 4 to the age of 15. Um, it sucked. Still sucks. Natalie having to go through that sucks. Me and Natalie weren't the only people who went through that shit in the system. We weren't the only ones who had parents who were addicts. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens with CPS where CPS is taking kids that shouldn't be taken away from their parents because there are so many bad foster homes, even to this day. Racism is just a part of that culture. You got no idea. When you're locked up in the juvenile system, you live racism. That is what you know. You live it. You don't have a choice in your skin color. You don't have a choice in who hates you. Now, this Rob feller who made a video thing about Natalie and the situation with that, at least part of my situation. He got a lot of stuff wrong, but given the information that he had access to, I mean, he did a pretty good job. He's the only one who seems like he legitimately made any real effort. None of the rest of them looked at it objectively. None of them tried to look at it from both sides and both points of view. I mean, the things that these people did to me for months and even years that nobody would do anything about. And I have documentation and proof and evidence of these people doing these things for years. And the police, no matter what, telling me no matter what, it's always out of jurisdiction or they can't do anything. How many times have I recorded that? Now they want me to write it all down. I just recently got to the point where I can actually start collecting it to the point where I can finish writing the story and actually put the evidence with it. And even with all of the evidence that has been lost and stolen, there is still enough evidence. There is still enough of a paper trail from the courts and from the public pretenders to hang those public pretenders and those courts for what they did. All it takes is a federal judge to take a look at it all. That's all it takes. Now, let me tell you about Arapahoe County Jail and the racism there. Arapahoe County Jail and most of the groups that I was in, or most of the pods, it was mostly minorities, primarily black. Now, you'd think that that's the part that we should focus on. Actually, no. Racism is only part of the issue. Racism and division through racism is only part of the war against the poor. You have to have slaves. That's the way rich people think. You have to have slaves. Now, in Boulder, we had a term, a roll through. When it comes to the jail, do you know what a roll through is? It's somebody that either the police don't like or somebody who is considered mentally ill. And they roll these guys through the courts over and over again. People like Zach Boatman, he's not even a violent dude. He's just loud, but he is schizophrenic. When I used to run off child molesters, I'd go get Zach Boatman. Yes, he's schizophrenic. Train. Anyway, so this guy's name is Rob, the guy who has the YouTube channel. That train is pretty loud. I'm used to it shaking the whole trailer. It just, we had a wreck here once in Chapel, Nebraska when I was about 16. And I spent a couple of days unpacking meat off of some frozen trucks here in Chapel, Nebraska with some guys from the Labor Ready, or maybe it was Manpower. They came in from Kansas City. Derailed right outside of my grandma's house at the other end of town. This is the very same grandma who died in 2018. The very same grandma who Natalie's sister and her dad were fucking with me just prior to her funeral. 7 hours playing head games, giving me no indication that Alicia was okay. Now, I've dealt with a lot of crap. It's not just racism. There's also the prejudice that you hold. Now, there are understandable prejudice. You know, you got a World War II veteran who's seen a German 88 and what it can do to a tank and a crew and an airplane. Yeah, when they see that, they're possibly even going to shudder, even if it's just a display piece in a museum. That's something a lot of World War II vets might have in common. Veterans, I apologize. I shouldn't say that. It's disrespectful. This Rob feller, there was a racist guy in there. There was a couple of them, actually. One of the dudes was accusing me of framing a Mexican, and this other guy was obviously a racist, and he was saying it, you know, this Mexican this and this Mexican that. I don't want to hear this racism. I don't want to read this racism. That's not what I'm here for. I just skipped over his shit. This is about justice. Justice for Natalie, but not just for Natalie. And not just for me. I'm not going to get justice. All of the crimes that I committed out of desperation because I couldn't get help. I couldn't get the help that I needed to stop the abuse. To be able to go see my friends without fear of being assaulted for things that I didn't do. I was made for saving lives. There is not much that I'm better at. I'm better at saving lives than I am drawing pictures. I'm better at saving lives than I am fixing stuff. I got a lot of stuff in here that used to be broken, and it's not now. Do you know why? I'm fucking good at fixing stuff. You want to see something really cool? This thing is pretty heavy and it hurts a bit to pick up. I pulled this handle right here out of the garbage can. This other end was given to me by a friend. It was a rust bucket sitting in a pile of oil. Gave it a new paint job. I can barely lift the thing. My back is pretty screwed up. I can lift it. I can't use it. It hurts. Sometimes when my back gets hurting a lot, I'll go out there and I'll swing it a couple of times, make my back go numb. It works. I was told not to do it, but if it makes the fucking pain go away, it's better than taking opioids. It's better than taking something that doesn't do anything, but I'm going to become addicted to it. Most of my friends didn't get started on heroin the way that Natalie did. Natalie got started on heroin with her dad. At least you two. Most of the people that I know that got strung out on heroin, they got an injury like I did. They started taking them opioids, got addicted, and then they ran out of prescription and the pain was still there. The racism that we're dealing with, it is rampant. But it's not just racism. That's just one prejudice that's used to keep us divided. I mean, let's take a look at the racism that the Native Americans have to go through. Then let's look at the racism that the black people have to go through. I keep getting told that I'm not allowed to make any comparisons between me and either of these people. Regardless of what I'm going through, I'm a white male. I need to go take a back seat. It's because I have to take a back seat, and I always have to take that back seat, despite the fact that I don't get any rights, any actual rights, which you expect me to take a back seat. Here's something I want you to do. If you're with Black Lives Matters, I want you to get involved in the MMIW and MMIP. You know what that is? Missing and murdered Indigenous women, missing and murdered Indigenous people. Get involved. Unity, not division. It's not black power. It's not white power. It's not red power. It's human power. People power. Democratia. People power. I'm not talking about this rigged election bullshit where you have the choice between the lesser of two evils. That's not a fucking election. I know too many good people who are dead because of bad laws, bad law enforcement, and bias. The courts do not operate according to the law. They operate according to bias. A black man walks into the room, he's a lot more likely to be convicted, and he's more likely to get convicted on his first rather than his third offense. But here's another thing. Those of you who are empowered to speak out for your missing brothers and sisters in the Native American community, I want you to understand that these black people are going through a lot of their own stuff. I heard some racism up there on the reservation. Not towards white people. It was towards the Native Americans and towards black people, primarily. That's kind of creepy to hear on a reservation. But the other thing is, there are situations like with Selena Not Afraid and her death. That was preventable. I do not consider someone dying of exposure to the elements. I do not consider that an accidental death. That is always murder. That is always murder. These are human beings, for shit's fucking sake. You want to talk about bringing your dog in at night? If it's cold for you, it's cold for your dog. That's right. That's fucking right. That is exactly right. When you got 4,000 homeless people in an area that's got 122 goddamn beds, are you fucking kidding me? Racism is a part of this issue. Yes. It's only part of the division. Sexism is also an important part. So we got black people who are focused on black people's rights, and that's pretty much it. We got natives focused on Native American rights, and that's pretty much it. They'll speak out about some of the other stuff a little bit here and there, but where they're actually going to get involved, if they do involved, is just within their own communities, just within their own group. The same thing with churchgoers. You're not going to be spending all your time over at the Lutheran Church if you're Baptist. We all know this. If a tornado comes through and destroys the Lutheran Church, then maybe the Baptists would come help rebuild it. Maybe. Depends on how judgmental they're feeling that week. They, as a group. Religion is used to divide us, so we're conquered. Racism is used to divide us, so we are conquered. Sexism is used to divide us, so we are conquered. The women who complain the most about sexism are the most sexist people that I know. They're more sexist than any man I've ever met. And I know some extremely sexist men. A man can't get an honest day in court if he has overwhelming proof, but a woman can send a man away over opinions. She can destroy a man's life with her opinions. Who was right to be scared in this situation? Me, who was actually being abused? Or Natalie, who was on fucking heroin? I got people want to call me a racist because I don't agree with their propaganda. I got people who want to call me sexist because I don't agree with their propaganda. I'm for equality. That means I want you to have the same rights as me, but I don't have any. You got more rights than I do. So either I, according to the Constitution, need to have more actual rights, or you need to have less. If I got to sit in the back of the bus, how many of you are brave enough to come sit in the back of the bus with me? Was Rosa Parks a hero? You goddamn right she was. She stood up to the goddamn establishment. I was thinking about getting a hold of Bobby Forrest and seeing if he wants to go throw some tea into the harbor in Boston. You know why I don't? I don't want to fucking litter. I don't want to kill a bunch of innocent fucking fish. Besides that, what does the tea company ever do to me? How is that going to hurt the people who hurt me? How is that going to affect them in any way, shape, or form? How is that going to stop them from victimizing others the same way that they did to me and others? I sat down in several groups, most of them were church groups, and I took account of how many of the people in that church group were homeless immediately before being incarcerated. In one of those groups, it was 100%. 100%. Asking around in all those pods, asking how many people grew up in foster care, most of them. See, minorities are not the number one cross section of the prison population or the jail population. The homeless are. They can't afford bail. They can't afford phone time. They can't afford shit. They sit. They're easy to victimize. They're easy to roll through like Zach Boatman. Zach Boatman has the double duty of being both homeless and actually schizophrenic. So he spends a lot of time behind bars, and he still keeps getting let out. But they still haven't gotten him housing after over 10 years of this schizophrenic jumping in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out of the jail. I've seen Zach Boatman go to he didn't do. I've seen Zach Boatman go to jail for shit that other people did to him. I've also seen the cops completely ignore him when he was committing an actual crime that he could spend some actual time on, because if they had to do that, it would reflect badly on them because of his history of being in the Boulder County Jail as a roll-through. That's their moneymaker. That makes money for everybody. It makes money for the public pretenders. It makes money for the judges. It makes money for the lawyers. It makes money for the DA and for the defense. It makes money for the cops. It makes money for the jails. Where is this money coming from? Is this stuff just falling out of thin air? I mean, we don't have funding for schools, but we got funding for more prisons. We don't have funding for adequate housing, but we have money for prisons. We don't have money to spend on actually investigating crimes against the disabled. But we'll spend plenty of money to pay some fucking therapist to listen to you bitch about it. You know, I only went to one goddamn AA meeting. I went in there, I listened to one group, and I went, holy fuck, I'm not listening to these motherfuckers. Are you fucking kidding me? You're out of your goddamn mind. No, I'm not sitting through this. I'm just going to stop drinking because I'm now, if I ever drink, I'm going to come back to one of these meetings. Fuck no, I'm not going to one of them meetings. Fuck no, I'm not drinking. And we got all these people that have all these racist crap that they got to deal with every day. But it's not just racism. That's what I'm telling you, boys. You got to start helping them girls out. Girls, you got to stop being so goddamn demanding. Try being a man for one day. And he can try being a woman for one day. If you guys are so stuck in that ancient frame of thinking where men have to be one way and women have to be another, we're not different. We have different genitalia, that's it. Everything else we're taught. We are taught racism. We are taught sexism. We are taught that people who are different are less than human. People who are different from our group. That keeps us divided. That keeps us arguing. That keeps us at each other's throats. This didn't need to be a fucking war. It didn't. Now, there's a lot of people that I was typing to on that, mostly the ones who wanted to be trolls. Those are the ones that, well, they want to ask the good questions. Why do I answer those people? They ask the right questions. They're trying to trip me up and make things seem in a way that they're not. And I tell them the truth over and over and over. And they repeat the same BS. I heard this and I heard that. This group said this and this group said that. Sean Schwartz hate groups. I didn't make them. The one that Katie Cahill gave me, she didn't want to deal with the drama. She didn't want to deal with the harassment or the threats any longer. She was dealing with it too. And she got to see the stuff that was happening to me. When it came to actually doing some work, yeah, she just turned it over to me. She's like, John, that's a lot of actual work. I didn't realize it was going to be actual work, so here you go. And I blocked most of the people that were trolling me in those groups. Do you know why? So they can't erase their comments. Their comments are permanently stuck there. I went through and selected just 11 of Adam Klein's comments. And Facebook let me know with all 11 of those comments that I was right. April Blair asked a question here. Why exactly did you lose your disability benefits? Is there any steps you can take to get them back? That may help you start to get your life back on track. You're absolutely right, number one. And number two, I was trying to get an advocate before Natalie was killed. All right. Now, this video is on racism, and I should get back to that shortly. But I finally got an advocate. Now, there's two things that she has extreme problems dealing with as far as I go. I do want my life to end every moment of every day. I will never be allowed an honest day in court unless people stand up and fight for my rights. This is not how disabled people should be treated. This isn't how someone who's not disabled should be treated. I wouldn't want you being treated like this. I wouldn't want Natalie being treated like this. I want Ted to be treated like this. I gotta be honest about that. I exposed Ted before Natalie was killed for a reason. That's why Natalie got that protection order. Because I exposed her dad with her email from 2016. Talking about him getting drunk, beating on her and her sister, about her mom dating abusive men, using those abusive men over her own fucking kids. talked about her dad almost beating Shelley to death and how he had them selling drugs down there on Pearl Street at the Boulder Public Library at 13 years old. And about dear old daddy getting too friendly. Alicia Michelle Bollinger, you turned in your dad. After that whole situation with Arturo and Emery, when you were 14, I was just glad that you weren't down there anymore. I was glad that Arturo and Emery did not have access to you anymore. What those men did was highly inappropriate. You were little girls. My disability advocate helped me to get my disability benefits back, reinstated. I've got $10,000 coming in back payments. I'll get about $2,400 either every 3 or every 6 months. I spent part of that money to get a printer because I've needed one. I mean, this whole time, if I'd have had a place this whole time, I would have been able to do exactly what I needed to do after Natalie was killed. But I didn't have a place this whole time. My disability advocate helped me to get it back. My autism advocate in specific, and she understands so much. See, one of the prejudices that I've had to deal with is people's assumption of autism. When we train police to deal with a crisis situation, we train them wrong. See, not all autistic people are the same. And most people, when you look at an autistic person having a meltdown, they've tried repeatedly to let you know what's going on. I mean, there is video after video after video from actual autistic people, high functioning people who can speak, getting treated like they're a low functioning autistic person who craps themselves and needs help showering. Not the same thing, not even close. That's the thing, is that when you are immodal, which means you can't speak, you can't tell people what's wrong. But if you have a condition that is commonly associated with what people think of as mentally retarded, or people who are immodal, they just assume that you're mentally retarded and they treat you accordingly. There's a lot of people that didn't know that I was autistic. I became very good at hiding it. It's called mirror. And I'm sure many of you have played this growing up, where you mimic. Sometimes you try to mimic speech. Sometimes you try to mimic a song. Now, a lot of the prejudice that we've had to deal with, it's not racism based. Racism is part of the problem. It truly is. And I will say that first and foremost. I will admit that, well, being homeless in Boulder, the only thing worse than that is being black and homeless in Boulder, because the police are gunning for you. Now, a lot of times when they go after a homeless person, they'll have a black officer or a Hispanic officer do it. Everybody hates the homeless. Meanwhile, if you care about women's rights, you need to fight for the homeless. Many of those women who are homeless because they were fleeing domestic violence situations. And in many of those cases, the very same officer whose praises they were singing 6 months ago when they came to take that son of a bitch away, when she couldn't pay all the bills herself and ended up homeless and they took away her children, that very same cop is coming by and harassing her every day. That very same officer who was her hero 6 months ago, treating her like she's below an animal now. You care about black rights? There are plenty of black homeless people. Statistically, there are more hate crimes against homeless people than all other hate crimes combined in the United States times 5. Now, what percentage of our population is homeless? There's a lot less homeless people than there are black people. Most of the black people that I was locked up with were homeless, and most of them grew up in the system. Most of the white people that I was locked up with were homeless before they were incarcerated, and most of them grew up in the system. I'm not talking about juvenile hall. Some of them, yeah. Most of the black kids were in juvenile hall. Most of the white kids were either in juvenile hall or mental institutions or foster homes or group homes because their parents weren't allowed to have them. Now, let me tell you about the Hispanic kids. The Hispanic inmates that I was locked up with, same thing growing up. I'm not talking about Mexican, I'm talking Hispanic. People of Hispanic origin. People who have to deal with the same racism as Mexicans do, despite the fact that they aren't always Mexican. Born in the United States, don't that make them American? You know what happens when they go into the system? How about these kids on the reservations when they go into the system? The rampant alcohol and meth stuff that we want to claim is only on the reservations. Shit, it's America wide. On this very YouTube channel, I have shown you meth addicts and meth salesmen and heroin salesmen and heroin addicts and prostitutes on this very channel. Now, the problem here is that I didn't lose my disability, it was stolen from me. Right before Natalie was killed, all right, let me tell you about my financial situation. Ken and Leah were making all sorts of promises. I was paying rent down there in Colorado, $275 a month to Ken and Leah. And I was paying $207 or something like that a month here in Chapel at Hilltop, where I have a place now. And in order to get the property that I wanted to get, and in order to help rescue people. Now, the house that I was staying in for the last 6 months, it belongs to a friend. I was actually going to buy the house right before Natalie died. I was either going to buy this house or some property that was in San Juan County, Colorado that I was looking at. And I was looking at that specifically with the dude who bought this house's sister in mind. She's one of the missing people that I helped to find. She's a mother. She's an addict. She's got a lot of problems. She does need help. She needs help. But she's a roll through in the system now, too. Just in and out, in and out. At least she is going to be a roll through. I mean, come on now. Y'all want to feel sorry for her because she's pretty. Well, then do something. Even if it's just because she's pretty, understand that she is in a fucking shit ton of pain. She needs help. Same as these black folks who have, well, about the same rights as I do. Some of them less. If they were homeless and black, yeah, they got less rights than I do. They are less human to our society than I am. And that's just sickening to think about. All of these things that I was told are not against the law or jurisdiction got in the way. If I did them, well, obviously, if they're charging me as a criminal for these things, obviously they're illegal. If they're illegal for me, then it's illegal for these other people to do it to me to begin with, is it not? But if you refuse to look at that, then it makes it magically okay. Now, a lot of this racist crap that I've had to deal with, I've had to deal with since I was a kid. Most of the places I was locked up in, I was a poor kid. My parents were locked up for fucking cocaine abuse in the 1980s. Might as well have been black. I've had a lot of black people tell me, yeah, you really are black. Brian Townsend, he tells me I'm black all the time. I'm like, I wouldn't know. I think you'd know better than I would, Brian. Brian had to deal with racism at the Super 8 motel there in Longmont. An Asian dude was racist towards him and his brother Clyde. That was so screwed up. We rented a room with 2 beds for a reason. But they wanted to claim, although people were right outside the back door smoking weed and smoking cigarettes all night, every night while I was there, they wanted to claim that me and those 2 black guys, well, not me, they claimed that those 2 black guys were selling drugs out the back door. You're out of your fucking mind. Holy shit. And that sucked because Brian Townsend had been carrying all of my shit. And I was paying for it. And I was paying for our gas. And I was paying for us to move. Mark Swanigan had to deal with a lot of racism in Boulder County, too. Racism is a byproduct of the war against the poor. They're not just after black people. They're not just after Hispanic people. They're not just after Native people. They're after power. They have the power. They can lie to you, they can deceive you, and it's all perfectly legal in their minds. The laws that apply to us do not apply to them. The laws that apply to us do not apply to judges. They don't apply to lawyers. They don't apply to police officers. They don't apply to Congress. They don't apply to the president. We, the poor, are the only people who have to obey the laws. Anybody else can buy their way out. 2 of the lawyers that I talked to told me, you know what, it's too complicated now. But if you'd have come to me at the very start, yeah, dude, fucking, we could have done a lot. We could have gotten the charges dropped on $1,000. I'm like, $1,000? Jeez, that'd be sure fucking nice to have. The problem is that although I'm disabled, Ken and Leah stole all my money. They swindled and tricked me and betrayed my trust. The things they did to me were horrible. I made the wrong decision by moving out of Hilltop there down to Ken and Leah's. If I'd have just stayed at Hilltop instead of Ken and Leah's, I could have saved that money to get that same property. Bobby Red, is that you from Boulder? Is that Shovelhead Red? Someone type it on the side here. Now the thing is that it's not a race issue. It's a poor issue. In Canada. Very cool. A couple of the Christians that were threatening my life, talking about cutting my throat and cutting off my testicles and stuff, live in Canada. Also, a lot of people who like to use the word cunt in Canada. Let's read some of these comments. April Blair. I'm high functioning as well. I've worked hard on social stuff, but I understand being misunderstood by others. Still happens sometimes. Yep. There's a lot of people who assume that I miss all social cues. I don't. There's a lot of social cues that I don't get because I've never been in the situation. If a woman's attracted to me, I don't know it. I've never had a girlfriend. I can't fucking tell. I don't know unless I've lived through the situation, actually experienced it. Telling me about it is that's not going to help me. If you're not blunt with me, you're on your own. If a woman is 100% perfectly blunt with me, like Chelsea Burston was, or like Brianna Hernandez Cordona was, or blatantly obvious like Brianna Ingersoll was, yeah. Um, with this sexism stuff, it's got to stop. If you want white people to stop being racist towards white people. It's a good start. Try acknowledging all of the white people who have showed up to Black Lives Matters, all of the white people who have spoken out about the missing and murdered Indigenous women and helped search for them. How about all of these straight people who showed up to your LGBT parade or to Pride in Denver? I've gone to Pride a few times. I love Pride. People who are just having fun and they're allowed to, and it's fine. And they're not beaten up for being that way. They're not dragged behind a pickup truck by a rope in Wyoming until their head fucking comes off. I've never been gay, but I've been treated like I'm gay my entire life because I don't get social cues. I don't understand women. Sorry, the places I grew up in, you don't touch each other. You're not allowed. So you don't. That's where I grew up. Not Planet Lovey-Dovey, let's hug on each other. It's, hey, you keep your hands to yourself. You keep your hands to yourself. It don't matter if you're male or female. You, as a male, can't touch other males either. You got to ask permission before going into a room or leaving the room. Um, Hello, I hope I'm not bothering you or anything. I come here from Rob Gavigan's video to tell you I am sorry for everything you went through about that case. I hope you are doing better now. I'm not doing better now. At the same time, I sort of am. I mean, everything that's happened in the last 3 years, I got to try to get all of it taken care of. There's no way. I couldn't take care of it then. There's no way I can take care of it now. Being assaulted by Officer Waylon Lolatai. That started the court crap so that all of the illegal stuff that Broomfield did was magically okay. That got, by charging me with a felony against a police officer, all of the evidence that I had tried to give the Broomfield officers was actually illegally obtained. I didn't know that, which really sucks. So they literally had to break the law in order to recollect the evidence that I had already freely given them. I freely gave them my computer and my telephone. They checked to see if my telephone had been somewhere else, and then they gave it back to me. But they kept my computer and have it to this day. Now, that assault by Waylon Lolatai, who has a history of assaulting people both before and after me, well, that was used to continue the hatred towards me. Now, one thing the border police absolutely 100% needed to do right after Natalie died, they had to try to shut me up. I'd been speaking out about them for years and posting it on my Facebook. Who, what, when, where, and why. Most of it's still there. The shit the cops did to Ogre, the shit the Cardboard did to Ogre, sorry, Lexi Delgado and Christopher Weaver, it's in there. The stuff that happened with Christopher Tapp, it's in there. I spoke out about what happened to them. John Fox, too. I spoke out about what happened to him. But with all these people, it wasn't speaking out on the internet that made a fucking difference. You know what made a difference between Ogre being harmed for crimes that he didn't commit and possibly murdered for crimes that he didn't commit? Me there in person, on foot, where it actually mattered. You know what the difference was between John Fox being taken up the mountain and killed and him being alive today, which he is? Me, on foot, helping people in person where it mattered. Bobby Red, Natalie messaged me that she was not scared of me. She was pissed off at me. Natalie was not scared of me. I was scared shitless of her for good reason. I knew she was an addict. I know how addicts work. I knew exactly what to be afraid of with Natalie. With all of these people, when you've grown up in the system, you do risk assessment with every person you meet. How much trouble is this person likely to be? Natalie was a lot of fucking trouble. I mean, you look at her situation, yeah, she was a lot of fucking trouble. And when she wasn't a lot of fucking trouble, she was in a lot of fucking trouble. When she was younger with Arturo and Emery, I didn't even know their fucking names. I knew these were friends with Maddie. I knew that Maddie was friends with Derek. I knew that Derek was 18. I knew that Derek was the son of my friend Janine. I knew that Derek hung out with Janine. And I knew that those little girls weren't allowed to sit in the social circle when I was there. For good reason. That didn't stop them. Doesn't really stop anybody. When I went to talk to the officers about it, you know what the officers told me? They have as much of a right to be here as you do. Yeah, but if I don't want them sitting in my group because I don't want little kids around me, because it's fucking creepy and it gives people the wrong goddamn impression, and then you have innocent people getting beaten up because these little girls aren't fucking listening. But it's not just little girls, it's little boys too. Those little girls come down there for the attention, for the affection, for the free drugs, and for older men who are more mature. No, they're fucking homeless drug dealers. What the fuck is wrong with you? Some of these people are selling weed because they got kids they got to take care of. They're also working a full-time job. No, they don't have time for you, little girl. And because you're a cute little girl, your daddy wants to molest you and rape you extra, so you don't want to be home. You want to be down with the homeless people who treat you decent. And they're not trying to fuck you because they can't, because they're stuck in public. You could be sitting next to the nastiest fucking pedophile on planet Earth, but he's not going to try to fuck you because you're in public. Of course, you're more likely to find that nasty pedophile in your own house. It's probably your dad, statistically. But you don't want to hear about that. You just want to take it out on the homeless people. Natalie didn't take it out on her dad. She took it out on me. Natalie didn't take it out on Tim Beeson. She took it out on me. She didn't take it out on her Uncle Troy. She took it out on me. She didn't have to lay a finger. After my birthday in 2016, I never saw Natalie again. I didn't care where she was. I knew that she had her sister, and I assumed that she was safe as a result of it. I assumed that her sister, who's supposed to be her best friend, Bobby Red, what would I do to the guy that hurt her? I would try to free him and beg him to shoot me next. He gave Natalie what she wanted. You ever had to deal with Natalie's fucking junky ass goddamn pedophile family? You'd want to put a bullet in your goddamn head too. And I don't mean that as an offense to you, Bobby Red. A lot of these people wanted to hide behind their religion. That's another prejudice. Jesus